This episode is brought to you by World of Warships. The game is free to play, with the perfect balance of action and strategy. You can command a massive naval fleet featuring some of history's most iconic war vessels. In this team-based game, you can unlock new ships and dominate the oceans with 30 million players worldwide. Experience combat in weather effects that make each engagement unique and change the tactics of battle. In World of Warships, each in-game ship is faithfully recreated using 3D scans of the real-life version, and you can customize it to your design. World of Warships is constantly updating the game, so there's something new to experience with a steady cadence of new missions, game updates, and events. There are over 200 ships available to play across 11 different nations, and submarines will be coming soon. Use our exclusive code below and get 2 free ships, the St. Louis and the premium ship Emden. Click the link below to play World of Warships and collect an exclusive bonus starter pack. New players can register with the code BOOM to receive 200 doubloons, 2.5 million credits, the 2 free ships, the St. Louis and the premium ship Emden, 7 days premium time, and more. German U-boats, World War II. Although banned from building U-boats after the First World War, Germany started building new submarines in 1935 in order to secure the balance of naval power with Great Britain. By the beginning of World War II, the power of the German U-boats became very noticeable. The first U-boats for the Kriegsmarine, the Type 1 and Type 2, were humble, but proved to be a great base for the later Type 7 U-boats. The Type 7 U-boat was the pride of the German naval forces in World War II. These very well-designed and armed U-boats were the backbone of the German submarine fleet. More than 700 Type 7 U-boats were made in several different versions. The most famous was the Type 7C. Like the rest of the class, the Type 7C had 2 engines, a double 1400 brake horsepower diesel engine for surface sailing, and 2 electric motors with 375 brake horsepower for submerged propulsion. The shortcoming of early electric engines were the batteries that had a short lifespan, and as a result, submersion was used mostly as a defensive maneuver when the U-boat was attacked. On the surface, the Type 7 could sail for 6,500 nautical miles, but could only do 80 nautical miles when submerged. The most impressive feature of the Type 7 U-boat was its armament of 14 torpedoes that could be launched from 4 bow tubes and 1 stern tube. The upper deck was equipped with a reliable 8.8 centimeter gun, alongside various anti-aircraft weaponry. Apart from torpedoes, some versions were built as mine layers. The length of the U-boat Type 7 was 220 feet, or 67.1 meters, allowing it to house 44 crewmen. A close relative of the Type 7 was the Type 9, which was 251 feet, or 76.5 meters. It could hold more crew, and most importantly, it had more powerful engines that could provide a much larger radius of action. The Type 9C had 2 MAN 2200 brake horsepower diesel engines and 2 SSW 500 brake horsepower electric motors. Its range on the surface was 11,000 nautical miles. It even had a more powerful armament, with 6 torpedo tubes, 4 in the bow and 2 in the stern, and could store 22 torpedoes. The upper deck had 1 10.5 centimeter gun, a 3.7 centimeter gun, plus AA guns. The Type 7 and Type 9 were the striking force of the Kriegsmarine during the Battle of the Atlantic, a German attempt to cut off the British Isles and force the Allies to surrender. In the first years of the war, the Germans used them to cut off supply lines that were bringing weapons and equipment from the United States to the United Kingdom. When attacking, German U-boats were using the so-called Wolfpack tactic. Several U-boats would patrol the northern Atlantic in coordinated routes. When one of them would spot a merchant convoy, it would inform the other U-boats of their position, so everyone would rush to it to attack the target. The Wolfpack tactic was very successful at the cost of Allied vessels, but eventually proved to be self-destructing. Once the Allies directed their attention to eliminating this German threat, they realized all they had to do was to begin to catch the radio communications between the German U-boats, and to use these to track them down. Allied countermeasures were so effective that the Germans abandoned the tactic. More importantly, German supremacy in the Atlantic Ocean began to decline once the Allies introduced aircraft equipped with radar to locate submarines. As the Type 7 and Type 9 spent most of their time on the surface, they were easy to locate, making them easy targets for the Allied bombers. From that point, the hunter became the hunted. By the end of 1943, most German U-boats were sunk, and those that survived were under constant threat from Allied destroyers and bombers. Facing the fact that the Type 7 and Type 9 were vulnerable to air attacks, the Germans turned their attention to a completely new design for primarily submerged operations. The most successful submerged operations design was the Type 21. It was the first German vessel to be considered a submarine in its true intention. In comparison, all previous classes were submersible boats. The design of the Type 21 allowed it to spend as much time submerged as possible. The periscope, snorkel pipes, radar masts, and even flak guns were retractable. With a high-power electric engine and powerful batteries, the Type 21 could produce more power submerged than on the surface. With a hydrodynamic hull, it was designed to spend an entire patrol underwater, making it very advanced for the time. In addition to two MAN 2200 brake horsepower turbo-supercharged diesel engines, the Type 21 had two very powerful SSW 2500 brake horsepower electric motors that gave the U-boat a larger speed when submerged than when on the surface. A special feature were the two SSW 320 brake horsepower creep motors for silent running. When silent, it was very difficult to detect, especially because of its largely improved design, which allowed it to stay underwater for 75 hours. Not counting the danger from above, life on these U-boats was not easy at all. To permit the great amount of U-boats to be built, their size was severely limited. Taking into account that more than half of the space of the U-boat was used for 2 torpedo and 2 engine rooms, and the central part was reserved for a control room, it's clear that space for accommodation was pretty tight. One sailor could count on around 1 cubic meter of personal space only. Because U-boats were sailing on long patrols, they had to secure a lot of provisions, which demanded a lot of space. Therefore, food was stored almost everywhere, including the toilet area and shower. Food provisions were, on the other hand, very good, ensuring that sailors were well fed. This was, however, not the case with water, which was considered pure gold on U-boats. Sailors were therefore very cautious in maintaining hygiene, while laundry washing was out of the question. Prior and during the war, the Germans commissioned around 1,150 U-boats. Of these, 765 were sunk, and although the Germans eventually lost the battle at sea, and ultimately the war, the overall performance of their U-boats was highly noticeable, as they made up 67% of the total damage to Allied vessels. This episode was brought to you by World of Warships. Use our exclusive code below and get 2 free ships, the St. Louis and the premium ship Emden. Click the link to play World of Warships and collect an exclusive bonus starter pack. New players can register with the code BOOM to receive 200 doubloons, 2.5 million credits, the 2 free ships, the St. Louis and the premium ship Emden, 7 days premium time, and more.